Hey friends, and welcome to this next episode of the Cait Cast on Knitting podcast. If you're new here, my name is Caitlin, and I'm a knitter, spinner, sewist, and sometimes quilter based out of the Pacific Northwest. I hope you're having a really wonderful start to your December holiday season. I have been doing a lot of making and crafting, both kind of my normal things, knitting sweaters and stuff, but also some really fun seasonal things that I'm excited to share with you today. So grab your craft of choice, settle in, and let's get started. It has been quite the month since I talked to you last. We had Thanksgiving here in the States, which my husband and I kind of hosted for the first time. Our family definitely helped out and brought a lot of really yummy dishes and games and things like that. But we had a lot of fun with our family doing that. And we're gearing up for Christmas, which is always kind of a busy, hectic, but really nice time of year. And like I said, I've been doing some making for the holidays, both for gifts for other people, but also one of my favorite personal traditions is I try and do some Christmas making, Christmas crafting every year to add to kind of our own little decor stash. I really value like those handmade things, which is probably kind of obvious, being that I'm such a knitter and maker. But I really love having those unique little touches that I make and kind of add over the years. And I can remember, what year I made certain things. So I have a few of those kinds of makes to share with you today, but also just a lot of my normal things. I have some sweaters and some other finished objects, some that you've seen and some that you have not seen at all, and also works in progress. And I don't think that I've shared any of the works in progress today, maybe one. But yeah, just lots of new and exciting updates to share. So let's go ahead and get started. First up, I am wearing my champagne pullover. This is a pattern by Sari Nordland, and it features this really beautiful lace and cable detail kind of in the front of the sweater, and also the back has a similar panel, but along the sides, there's just like nice clean stockinette. And then the pattern also kind of goes down the arms. Really lovely as well. I knit this up using Knitting for Olive, their merino held with their soft silk mohair. I believe the merino was the color limestone and the soft silk mohair was the color snowflake, but those can be confirmed in my Ravelry project. I made this last winter, so it's been a little bit. But it's just a really nice festive looking sweater. So I thought I would wear this today for my December podcast. So now let's go ahead and dive into finished objects. The first one that I have to share, if you caught my last video that I posted on this channel, you'll have seen this before, but my regular podcasts haven't seen this. This is what I'm calling my Azaway sweater. It's essentially a customized Azor sweater, which is a pattern by Orlaine Souche. And I followed that pattern for the most part, but I customized the color work. I drew up my own color work charts for the yoke here. These were heavily inspired by another pattern, which I really love and admire, which is the Dalloway by Susan Crawford. This yoke was really just inspired by that, but I actually was able to pull directly from the Dalloway pattern for the detail on the sleeve, which I just think is lovely. I made a few other modifications to the Azor pattern as well. I did a double folded neckband in half twisted rib, which I think is just like a really nice polished detail that just looks really lovely. And I finished all the hems with that half twisted rib as well. I also kind of customized the decrease rates in the sleeve just for my own preference. Their sleeve decreases in the Azor are perfectly fine. I just tweaked them a little bit for me. I think that's pretty much it for modifications. I definitely have a list in my Ravelry project if you're curious, but I knit this sweater up actually using yarn that I frogged from a WIP that I had going a few months ago that just really wasn't working out for me. It's Cascade Heritage in the color Limestone for the main color, and then Treehouse Knits Sequoia Fingering in the color Edges of Your Soul for the contrast color. And I just think it's such a festive, little sweater. I wasn't really intending on this being like a Christmas sweater, but I think with the way the color work turned out, it actually kind of comes across that way. It feels very wintry and festive. So this might get some wear at some holiday parties this year too, which is quite nice. I'm really, really happy with how the custom color work chart came out. That was kind of my first time drawing out my own design for that. And like I said, it was very heavily inspired by another pattern. And so I kind of had a little bit of a safety net there that like I'm using very similar motifs. So it's going to come across similar to the Dalloway, but it has more rows, it has more repeats, the scale is different. And like some of the transition stages are different and stuff like that. So it wasn't a one-to-one pull, but I kind of had a little bit of a safety net to boost my confidence there. But yeah, I'm really, really happy with this sweater. I'm so glad to have a finished object with this yarn. The WIP that I had going, there's nothing wrong with the pattern. I just wasn't hitting gauge and it was creating some fit problems for me. So I'm really excited to finally have a finished object with this yarn. If you're curious to hear more about this sweater, I did record and film an entire vlog about this process of making this, from frogging the original work in progress to drawing out the color work charts and knitting the whole thing. And that is actually the video right before this one on my channel. So you can go ahead and click into that if you're curious. It was a lot of fun to make and film and take you along for the ride for. So I hope that if you're interested, that's a fun video for you to watch. My next finished object is one that has also been quite a long ways in the making, and that is this Louvre Sweater, which is a pattern by Petite Knit. And it's just this really beautiful, simple, classic kind of mock neck, funnel neck design. And I knit this up using 2 strands of Coast to Coast Yarn Co.'s Shanico Tweed Fingering in the color Button. And it just created this really, really lovely fabric. I think the texture and the color really reminds me of like a cookies and cream milkshake. Feels very wintry and timeless and classic. The yarn and the pattern combo together, I just think go so nicely together. I had so much fun making this sweater. This is my second Louvre sweater that I have made. And both times it has just been the most seamless, straightforward, enjoyable knit. Something that was just really easy to pick up and work on and feel like I'm making good progress. The gauge isn't tiny or anything like that, so you feel like you're making pretty substantial progress. The measurements are great, the instructions are great. It's just like a really easy, enjoyable knit where you just kind of want to take your mind off things and just sit down and knit for a while. It's a really good and easy one to pick up. So highly recommend this pattern. The yarn, absolute dream to work with. This is my first time using Shanico and I could not be more pleased. This was so nice to work with. It's so comfortable to wear. I'm actually shocked. I have decently sensitive skin. Like I'm wearing the Knitting for Olive merino and mohair right now and I can feel it on my skin. I wouldn't say I'm actively uncomfortable, but like I can feel it. And this sweater is far and away the most comfortable sweater I own. It's like not wearing wool at all, honestly, which is kind of really surprising because it's non-superwash. So it has these really great woolly properties of being very bouncy and like has memory and structure to it. But it is just so, so soft. It feels like I'm not wearing wool at all. Absolutely in love with this yarn. Really pleased with how the fabric came out. Like I said, I held this yarn double, and this sweater is knit up on US 6 or 4mm needles. And so it's a little bit of a denser gauge, but it still has like some good drape to it, but it's like a nice balance between structure and drape, I feel like, for this pattern. But just so pleased with how the yarn came out. I was a little bit worried if this yarn was going to pill just because it is so soft. And I think I've worn this 4 times since I finished. And in the most high traffic area under the arm where the most friction happens, I don't even know if you can tell. There's like a little bit of fuzziness, but totally within acceptable range for a wool sweater. I feel like I have other sweaters that pill at a faster and more noticeable rate than this one. So really, really pleased with this yarn. I'm so excited to knit with it again. I actually have a sweater quantity waiting for me for the new year in Shanico that I'm very excited about because this was just so much fun to work with and really, really nice to wear. I don't think I really made any modifications to this other than I did shorten the sleeves a little bit just for my own fit. And kind of did faster decreases, I think in the last 2 or 3 little spots there just to make it about an inch shorter. Now that it's like fully blocked, I think maybe I might add some of that length back to the sleeves. I think sometimes when you first block a sweater, it really relaxes, you know, and then you wear it for a bit and it kind of, especially a non-superwash wool, will kind of spring back a little bit and regain some of its original shape. And so I feel like the sleeves have gotten a smidge shorter, still wearable. They probably fall, maybe around like my actual true wrist here, which sometimes I want them to be a little bit longer like that. So I don't know, I'll live with it for a while and we'll see. And I might make that little bit of a modification later on next year. But yeah, the other thing that I did try with this sweater, not for the collar. For the collar, I did regular 1x1 ribbing, but on all the other hems and cuffs, I actually tried combination knitting, which, if you're not familiar, is a method of doing ribbing where it's ideally going to result in a little bit of a neater, tighter fabric. Without going into too much detail, you basically purl through the back loop. I hate purling through the back loop, and this is not that annoying because the stitches kind of twist themselves anyway, so it doesn't really feel like purling through the back loop after the first row, but it's essentially a way to give each of your stitches the same amount of yarn being used because naturally pearls use a little bit more yarn than knits. And so it's just a way of making your ribbing a little bit neater because each stitch is kind of using the same amount of yarn. And I do think it came out really nicely and neat. Like it turned out well. When I compare it, at least in this yarn, to the ribbing that I did just normally, I really don't see that much of a difference. They both look pretty neat to me. However, I think if I was using a superwash yarn or maybe like a silk or bamboo or maybe even cotton, something that's a little bit slipperier, I think that combination knitting actually would make quite a big difference to the tension in my ribbing. So it's definitely something that I want to keep kind of an eye on and keep in my back pocket for those yarns where maybe they're just a little bit slippier and could use from some tension help. So if you haven't tried of or heard combination knitting, I highly recommend taking a minute to look up a video tutorial about it because it's actually a very easy thing to get in the swing of, and I feel like it will help on those projects a lot. So yeah, overall, very, very happy with this sweater. Could not be happier, honestly. 10 out of 10. Highly recommend both this yarn and this pattern. It's just a really classic, timeless sweater that I know I will wear for as long as humanly possible. The next finished object that I have is one that I mentioned in my last podcast episode, and that is this little Oslo hat. I knit this up using 2 strands of Coast to Coast Yarn Co. Natural Extra Fine in the color Crater Lake. And this was actually kind of a re-knit project. I knit this hat up in this exact yarn a year ago, but used much too small of needles and ended up with a hat that was much too small. And so it kind of went into a pile of things that needed to be frogged so that, you know, I could reclaim the yarn and do something with it. And I wanted to give this hat one more try. But while it was in that pile of things that needed to be frogged, it accidentally got put in the wash with our laundry. Got mistaken for what pile it was in. Yeah, so it did go through the wash. This is non-superwash yarn, so there was a little bit of felting, nothing like major. It was just, it kind of took some of the stitch definition out of it basically and probably shrunk it a little bit. But I was still hopeful that I could reclaim the yarn and reknit the hat and have things go to plan. Unfortunately, I feel like because it went through the wash, I think the yarn shrunk a bit, and I just lost some yardage because this is not quite to the dimensions that I would have hoped for. It's close. I do like an Oslo hat that is shallower than what is stated in pattern, but not quite this shallow. This can fit over my head. It covers my ears, but it's just not quite as low as I would like. A little bit more at the top here, maybe like 5 or 10 more rows. So it's not my favorite fitting hat, if I'm being honest. I don't know how much wear it will get, which is kind of unfortunate, but I used like every scrap of yarn that I had for this hat. So I think this is pretty much as good as it's going to get with this yarn. But yeah, I'm planning on leaving this in my closet, letting it hang out there for a while. I'll see how much I pull for it, and maybe it will get a lot of wear and maybe it won't. But if it doesn't, I can definitely use this yarn for something else in the future, and just kind of play it by ear. I think it could be reclaimed and turned into a scarf, or I could even use it for color work or something like that. So this isn't necessarily the end of the road for this yarn. It might be. I might really love wearing this hat and get a lot of use out of it. But I also might eventually reclaim this yarn and turn it into something else. We'll just see. But I do love this color, and I think the concept is there. Just unfortunately, through my own mistakes, it just didn't quite work out this time. But yeah, like I said, maybe we'll get a lot of wear out of it and I'll love it and it'll be great. We're just gonna live with it and see what happens. My last knitted finished object is one that you very likely have seen before and are familiar with, but it's a pair of sailor slippers. Oh, these were so much fun. If you aren't familiar with the sailor slipper pattern by Annie Sews, this is a slipper pattern where you use really chunky wool yarn and really big needles and knit quite a large slipper-sized object. And then you stick them in the wash and they shrink and felt, and you get these really cozy slippers that kind of form really nicely to your feet. I knit these up using the recommended yarn, which is Drops Snow. That was my first time using any Drops yarn. That's not super readily available here in the States. I did have to order that from the EU, but it came in a reasonable amount of time. It was well priced. I actually got the yarn while they were doing a Black Friday sale, so that was great. And yeah, I finished my first pair here and I'm really happy with them. I haven't gotten any wear out of them because they're just ever so slightly still damp. I've had them in front of a fan for about a day and they were drying kind of on their own for a day before that. So I think these need maybe tonight they'll be ready if I put them back in front of the fan. But these are just so cute and cozy. I'm so excited to get good wear out of them this winter. I used this kind of gray brown color for the sole, just in case there's, anything on my floors that isn't perfectly clean. I don't want to ruin like a nice light colored sole on my slippers. And then the top has this kind of like sky blue with an off-white. And I just think they're so, so, so cute. I actually also got enough yarn to do a pair for my husband as well. His are going to be green, and I'll show you the yarn in the purchases and plans section. But I do have another pair of sailor slippers in my queue that need to get cast on here soon. I'm hoping that they can be kind of a Christmas thing for both of us. So these need to finish drying, but are pretty much done. And I'm excited to get a lot of wear out of them. It was a very, very fun project to work on, something very different. And I think it was just really interesting to kind of have a new kind of process and project where it comes to knitting where, I don't know, I just think it opens your mind to possibilities that maybe you haven't thought of before when it comes to knitting. So very cool. Definitely not my last pair of sailor slippers. I have for sure the one for my husband coming up, but I could see myself making a couple more pairs for our family as well. Then I have a few sewn finish objects that I'm really excited to share with you. These were kind of done on a whim. Every December I kind of get the urge to craft a little bit, make something kind of unique for holiday decor, and just kind of use a different side of my creative brain. And this year the projects that came out of it were quite fun. First, I started with a couple stockings with a patchwork design. I had a couple charm packs, just like in my fabric stash. All the prints in this one are from the Wheatland collection, from Fat Quarter Shop. And then the white was just like a Moda Fabrics off-white charm pack that I had. And I just got really inspired one night and decided to like sketch out this patchwork fabric design to see if I could get a couple stockings out of it and just the amount of fabric I had. So these were the first two things that I put together. They're double-sided stockings, both of them, so I can hang them either way. That was really important to me. And they have this really nice lining inside and a little hanger as well from the lining fabric. I kind of free-handed this patchwork design. I tried to get the most efficient use of fabric for both like the little charm packs that I had, but also just for the shape of the stocking. I was trying to make sure, you know, I wasn't being very wasteful in the use of the fabric. So that's kind of where that came from. But then I followed a free blog post on Susie Quilt's website on how to kind of piece together the stocking. The tutorial includes like its own patchwork design, and she really walks you through the whole process. But I just kind of jumped ahead to, you know, cutting out the pattern pieces and piecing things together with the liner and the batting and all that stuff. So they look different, but it's the same process, and that was really helpful for piecing these guys together. So these were originally going to be for me and my husband, but I also wanted to have a stocking for our dog, but I didn't have enough fabric to make a third one of these. So I was feeling kind of bummed about that. But just kind of let myself stew a little bit overnight and ended up waking up with an idea to do a third one. I had just enough of my charm pack fabric left to do these little quilt squares on the front and back of this one, and then had some scrap fabric from my ruby vest that I sewed in September to kind of put together another one. So this blue fabric here is actually denim, and it's from Matchy Matchy Sewing Club. I used it for my ruby vest, like I said, but this is actually the wrong side of the denim facing out. It was just a little bit lighter and softer, and I felt like it coordinated with the other ones a little bit better, just not quite calling so much attention to itself. It just kind of fit in. And I was so pleased with how this one came out that I actually decided to make it my stocking instead. So my husband and my dog get these two, and I get this one, and it works out really well. I just love the little quilt square detail. I ended up kind of quilting the main fabric here to the batting and then just top stitched this quilt square on. So those aren't quilted with the rest of it. They just have a little bit of stitching around the edges there, but I think it turned out really well, and I'm really pleased with how this one came out. I was a little bit worried when I got started that it would feel very different from the others and just like not as cohesive or nice, which it is different. It is not as cohesive, but I think like collectively they just feel really cute and cozy and a little bit eclectic, but still very homey and cozy, and just really sweet. So I'm very excited. It also helps that they all have the same like hanger fabric and lining fabric. It's all this navy blue that I just had in stash. So yeah, I think they're just a really sweet little collection of stockings, and I'm excited to use them this Christmas. Then I did one other little sewn craft for Christmas this year, and that is this little star garland, which I just think is the cutest little thing ever. In my head, this is kind of what I was planning on doing with all of that Charm Pack fabric. I was going to make several of these and kind of put them all over the living room. But honestly, they weren't the most fun to make. So I just kind of stopped after, I think I did 8 of them technically, but 6 are in this garland. And like you saw, I used that fabric for stockings instead. But this was just like a really nice, cute little quick craft project that I really love the finished object and the effect of it in our living room. It's hanging from our mantle next to our stockings and just really sweet and cute. It is double-sided. Each star has a different color fabric on the back, so I can kind of flip it around. And I feel like this side is a little bit more Christmassy. It has green and red and white and blue, and it does have this one like warm orange and then a brown. And the other side leans a little bit more like Thanksgiving to me. They're both just kind of winter holidays, but I don't know why this one feels a little bit more like Thanksgiving to me. So I was thinking it could be fun to leave up all fall season next year, and then just like have it on this side and then just flip it after Thanksgiving just to give it a little bit of a fresh look. But yeah, it's just very simple stars. I actually just cut out a star shape out of cardstock, just like this, and then traced this onto fabric, cut out the fabric in the star shape, and then just sewed around the edges, right sides together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then I left like one of the little spokes unsewn, and then turned it right side out, and then added a little bit of stuffing inside, and then hand sewed the last leg. Really easy and simple. And honestly, probably not the cleanest sew job. Like, they're a little bit homely, but I also think that that's really sweet. So yeah, it's just a really cute little craft. But yeah, and then I just strung them up on some thread that I have, and yeah, they hang really nicely from our mantle. And because the fabric is kind of the same Charm Pack collection as our stockings, I just think they look really cohesive and nice together. But I will try and include some footage of kind of our fireplace setup with the stockings and the little garland there so you can see. Those are all my finished objects. There was quite a few today. I've been really enjoying spending some of the cozy cold days just kind of curled up and making things and making our home feel really warm and happy. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into works in progress. My first work in progress is one that I'm knitting up on a little bit of a deadline. This is a sweater for my husband. I am self-drafting this for him based on a store-bought sweater that he likes the fit of, and just trying to give him basically a replica of it, but made in a little bit better materials. I'm calling this the Jacob sweater because that's my husband's name. And yeah, I'm trying to get this done in time for Christmas, which I think is possible at this point. I was a little bit worried for a few days. I'm not going to lie. The stockings were not a distraction that I planned on. And I was feeling really good about the timing of this project. And then I did the stockings and then I stopped feeling really good about the timing. But I think I'm back on track. I think I'm feeling really good. So I'm most of the way through the body. I put it on pause because if you've watched my podcast before, you know that I am a fan of a mid-project block. It is my absolute least favorite thing to finish a sleeve or the body and then block it and then have it not be the right length and have to undo all that. So I cut the yarn and put it on pause. I think depending on how this grows, I may have to do up to 5 more inches. So that would be like 2.5 more inches of stockinette and then 2.5 inches of ribbing on the body. And then I also got through my first sleeve most of the way. I probably have about as much as like 3 inches left on this, 2.5 inches of ribbing and like a 1/2 inch of regular stockinette, just depending on how it grows. The sleeves have really nice and complicated short row shaping that I was not anticipating. But I'm very proud to have kind of figured out all of that. And then the second sleeve is just kind of getting started. The short row shaping's done. I'm working in the round and starting decreases there. So I will probably work on this for the rest of the day, just see how far I get, and then go ahead and put it in the wash and just take a look at it and see how it grows. I did a really sizable swatch for this project and blocked it, and I did not see any growth in that process at all, which I was kind of surprised by. I am knitting this up at a decently tight gauge. I'm using US 3 or 3.25 millimeter needles. This is a fingering weight yarn, and it does have nylon in it. So maybe it won't have growth, but I kind of don't believe it. So I just want to play it really safe. I actually already did a little bit of a block as well when I finished the back panel. I blocked that and also did not see any growth. So maybe that's accurate. I'll believe it when it's proven with a full-size object. So yeah, I think I'll make as much progress as I can on this today and then go ahead and put it on pause and give it a block, let it dry, make some final decisions about length and everything. And then while it's drying, I'm going to go ahead and cast on his sailor slippers and try and get those knit up, felted, and dried before Christmas Day. But I think that they'll be really nice, cozy presents for him. So I'm very excited to give them to him on Christmas morning. He knows that both of these are coming. He's tried on this, I think the sleeves, I hadn't started the sleeves yet the last time he tried it on. So I'm kind of hoping there's some element of surprise. I'm really just comparing it to his store-bought sweater, so that hopefully he doesn't have to, you know, try it on and he can be a little bit surprised at the end. But he's seeing me knitting on it. He helped pick out the yarn. Like, he's very involved in it. And same with the sailor slippers. He's going to be involved in that as well. So not necessarily surprises, but I think they'll be nice to unwrap on Christmas morning. The sleeves, like I said, had some pretty complicated short row shaping that I wasn't really expecting. I knew that there was going to be short row shaping. I wasn't worried about that at all. But I've really just been tackling this sweater like one piece at a time. Like, I'd take the store-bought sweater, I'd take measurements for the back panel, and then I knit the back panel, and then I took measurements for the front panel, and then I knit the front panel. And like, I was just taking it one piece at a time, so it didn't feel quite so overwhelming. But when it came time to take measurements for the sleeve, I realized the store-bought sweater is just knitted panels that were sewn together and like cut out. And so they have a lot more flexibility in terms of like how drastic their shaping is. And on the store-bought sweater, there is essentially 6 inches of short rows. There's 6 inches of additional fabric at the top of the shoulder compared to the underarm. And just based on my gauge and the amount of stitches that I could pick up, and all of that, like 6 inches was pretty drastic. I was essentially knitting past my last turn, only 2 stitches before turning again. So there's quite a few short rows in here. But then it was also complicated by the fact that the front and back panels are slightly different lengths, which I just didn't really think about. I don't know why I didn't think about it when I was just doing the front and back, but the center of the shoulder actually is in the front panel about an inch. Like, that's actually the center. And that's where my husband's natural shoulder falls. It does not fall along the seam here. It's a little bit leaning into the front. And so I was trying to figure out the best way to center my short rows, because ideally you would have them centered at the underarm and at the seam between the front and back panels. But because the front panel was longer and, you know, anyway, so the center of my short rows is actually leaning in a little bit to my front panel, but I feel like I made it work out really well and it still looks pretty seamless because I had kind of a wide start to my short rows, and I actually knit on that first row before I did any turning. I knit to the point where the front and back panels joined, and then I turned and then knit the same number of stitches past the center before turning again. So the edge of my short row shaping at the very top kind of falls in line with the seam. I hope that makes sense. And I feel like it makes it feel a little bit more intentional and purposeful and doesn't look super out of place. But that took a little bit of time to kind of figure out the best way to tackle that. A lot of Google searching and not really finding answers. And so just really experimenting and trial and error and figuring it out. I think I ripped it out probably like 3 or 4 times before I figured out the best way to do it. The other obstacle that kind of complicated the shaping in the sleeve was that in the store-bought sweater, the way that they shaped the sleeve cap was that there was about 16 inches of circumference of fabric at the top of the shoulder, but only 14 inches when you measured from the underarm out, like after the short rows shaping. So they were doing some decreases and just kind of cut the fabric in a way that it was a little bit slimmer down here, which makes sense, but it was something that I hadn't really seen done before in sleeve short row shaping, in sleeve cap shaping. It probably exists. I just haven't knit a pattern that does that. And so I was trying to figure out the best way to accomplish that. And I ended up basically using the same method that I have used in socks, in heel turns. That's really the only time that I've done short rows with decreases. So that's the method I used, where you kind of knit 2 together or like slip knit, like between the gap of a turn and the next stitch. And then, knit 1 or purl 1 more and then turn again. That's the method that I used for this. And I think it turned out well. There are some maybe minorly visible decreases, like in the last few rows is where I did it here, close to the underarm. And it might be slightly visible, but it's really not bad at all. And I think when I block it, it's going to become even more, invisible. So I'm really happy with how the sleeve shaping turned out, but it was a lot of work to figure out, and a lot more work than I was anticipating. I knew I was going to do short rows, and I knew there was going to be shaping. I did not expect it to need to be this extensive. And so it was a really great learning experience, and I'm happy with how it turned out. It actually measures to the same thing that the store-bought sleeve does now, which is awesome. But I think if I had taken a more holistic approach from the beginning and took really extensive measurements of all the elements before casting on, I might have added some width to the back panel so that the shoulders came out a little bit further, so I didn't need to do such extensive shaping. Maybe not. Maybe I wouldn't have caught it, but I think it worked out, but it could have been easier if I thought ahead a little bit more. But yeah, so I have just a few more inches on one sleeve and on the body, and some decent amount of progress that needs to happen on this sleeve, but it should go pretty quickly. I'm decreasing at a pretty rapid rate, and it's just stockinette. So I think we're on track to finish before Christmas. It might just be a steam block before it gets wrapped up for Christmas morning. But after I do a full mid-project block, I think that's going to be just fine. So yeah, I'm very excited to have this going and to have a sweater for him that I think he's going to get quite a bit of wear out of. It's really good. So I'm very excited about this one. The next work in progress is a little bit of a Cove sweater, which is a pattern by the Knit Pearl Girl. I cast this on when I wasn't feeling super well. I just needed a project that was easy, that I didn't need to count stitches or rows really all that much. I knew what I was doing. And like had a decently large gauge because I had a pretty bad migraine. And so like I thought about casting on socks or whatever, but just the idea of counting all those little rows and needing to look at that felt like a lot of work. So this was the perfect solution. I worked on it for just a couple days while I wasn't feeling well. And it was exactly what I needed. And it's kind of been put on pause while I work on my husband's Christmas presents. But that's okay. I'm really excited about this sweater. I am knitting this up using a combination that I have used in the past for a Cove sweater, which is 2 strands of Knitting for Olive Merino. And I love doing them in just slightly different shades. This one on the right here is the color Pomegranate, and this one is Robin. And they're just different enough that it creates this really beautiful and subtle marl, where it just has some nice movement and feels really good. So I have this sweater and this yarn combination in blue. that I knit this summer, and I just love the way it fits. I love the way it turns out. So I ended up buying some yarn to do a red version, and it's been waiting for me. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. It was just like the perfect cast on because I've knit this sweater before using this yarn. I did not need to gauge swatch. I only knitted a few months ago, so it's like my gauge has not changed all that much. And yeah, it was just a really nice project to get started on, and I'm excited to pick it up again when I finish my husband's sweater. I think it's just a very nice, bright, happy, colorful knit that feels really good to work on these dreary winter days. I was kind of in the back of my mind hoping that I might finish this in time for the holidays because it is just like a very bright, happy, festive color. That is not going to happen, and that's okay. I'll definitely get some more out of it in the new year. And I know that I will enjoy continuing to work on it when I finish my other WIPs. But yeah, I just worked on it essentially past the initial increases on the back panel. I'm knitting straight, and I think maybe I'm starting the slower increases to do underarm shaping now, but it's been a few weeks since I've touched this, so I don't exactly remember. I'll have to go back and refer to my pattern notes. But yeah, just a really nice, lovely project, super simple and easy, exactly what I needed. And yeah, I'll come back to it when I'm able to. I also had kind of a unique situation this month where I needed a nice portable, easy to knit project for some time spent in a waiting room. And this was the absolute perfect solution. I'm knitting a pair of socks using Red Door Fiber Studios Bounce Sock in the color Price of Dreams, which is this really lovely, warm, earthy, like almost Christmas red, but it just leans a little bit more terracotta orange. It's just really, really nice. Absolutely love this color. And I am knitting kind of a self-drafted pair of socks. I'm calling them waffle socks. And it's just a nice knit purl texture that I actually learned about the method from Jessica from those Twins Who Knit. It's very, very simple. After you're ribbing, you basically do 2 rows of stockinette, just knitting, and then you do 2 rows of a 2x2 rib, and then 2 rows of stockinette and 2 rows of 2x2 rib. And it just makes a really nice little texture there. I have done a few pairs of socks with this texture, and I love them all. And my very favorite pair of these like waffle socks is in a very similar color, and they are wearing through. I was rather dumb and knit them up using a cashmere merino blend, which is just not a very smart yarn to use for a sock. I have learned. And so they're just wearing through pretty quickly compared to all my other socks. So I wanted to get basically a similar vibe sock. It's a very similar color. And I wanted to get a pair of replacement socks for those because I know that those unfortunately are not going to last, and it's my own dang fault, but yeah. But I wanted a similar pair in my sock drawer to have when those ones do bite the dust. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It was just like a nice little portable project for when I needed it. Again, it really hasn't gotten much attention since I've been trying to finish my gift knits, but that's okay. I know I will get to it eventually, and they'll be a really nice pair of socks. I actually realized when I got this yarn that it was the same as a mini skein that I got in a sock set this summer from Red Door Fiber Studio, which was part of their like bear special release. It was like, this was what you could buy was a sock set. The main color I love so much. It's based on Fax character in the bear. It's one of my favorites. It's called I Got Hearth. And the mini skein I realized is the same. It's Price of Dreams. It's the same. And Cait from Red Door did bring back this color for their fall collection that they did this year, which is where I got this. And so I just realized I never really had plans to do socks with this. Like I wasn't sure what I was going to do with the mini skein. But now that I have a whole skein of it and a mini skein of it, I was thinking that I was probably going to be able to get 2 pairs of socks out of it, which is awesome. So that's kind of why I did a shorter ankle on this one. I do like my socks to have a shorter ankle sometimes, but originally I was thinking about doing a longer one on this one. But if I can get 2 whole pairs of socks out of this plus that mini skein, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna try. So I think I will probably do a pair of waffle socks, and then I want to do a pair of oxbow socks with this yarn. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I can get 2 full pairs of socks, which should be pretty doable based on how much yarn I've used in socks in the past. Those are all my knitting works in progress, but I do have 1 spinning work in progress. Just a quick update. I've been working on this braid of fiber from Wonderland Dye Works. This is the color Leaf Collecting, and this is a merino and tussa silk blend. Just absolutely beautiful, perfect autumnal color. I've been working on this. Last time I showed you my first ply. I'm doing a fractal spin for this one, so one ply has much more rapid color changes than the other. But since we talked last, I have made some really good progress on my second ply of this yarn, which you can see has much slower color changes in comparison to the first one. So it's coming along really well. I was hoping to have it pretty much done by the time I recorded, but crafts and Christmas and a lot of other things have gotten in the way, so that's okay. I'm making good progress on it. I'm trying to dedicate about 30 minutes a day to it so that hopefully I can finish on or around Christmas, which is fine. But yeah, I have just this little bit left for the second ply. It actually kind of looks like a normal fiber nest, which is exciting because I am spinning this entire ply from end to end. So it's half of the braid and it just spun all the way through. I didn't break it up at all. So this was like bigger than my head when I started. So it's got quite a bit smaller. I'd say probably between the whole braid, I'm probably about 75% of the way done spinning, maybe a little bit more. But yeah, it's coming together well. I'm really loving the slower color changes in this one. I just think they're stunning, and I'm really excited to see these play together. This will be my first official fractal spin. I've done some spins where one ply has faster color changes than the other, but never quite as like structured or intentional as this. So I'm really excited to see how it turns out and how the color changes kind of fade together and away from each other and piece together really nicely. Spinning from this bigger nest. If you remember last time I mentioned, this is probably like tied for the whitest piece of fiber I've ever spun from. If it's like fluffed out, it can be almost as white as my hand. And I wasn't too worried about this, maybe just a little bit, but like not too bad. No issues whatsoever spinning from a whiter piece of fiber. My main concern was feeling like I was making progress because I was spinning end to end in such a big piece of fiber. I just knew it was going to take hours to get through this one piece. And what's really helped me in this process is kind of setting either a timer or a stopwatch for, like I said, I've been trying to do about 30 minutes a day, which some days has felt very doable and I've actually done like an hour, and other days it's kind of felt like I need to prioritize some other things and I've spent a little bit less time. But it's just been nice to kind of see progress being made and like I am setting aside time to do it. And in the beginning, I also, with that timer or stopwatch, I weighed my fiber before I started spinning and then after my 30 minutes were up. And I was able to see like, how many grams am I spinning per minute? How much longer do I have in this nest of fiber? And that was really motivating for me. I highly recommend if you're feeling like something is drudging along. I knew that like at the beginning I had about 4.5 hours left to spin this little nest, and seeing that time go down every day just felt very nice. And I'm like, oh, I could watch a movie now and finish it if I just spun the entire movie, which I am spinning this quite thin. This is going to be either a fingering weight or a light fingering weight by the time I'm done with it. And so I do get some fatigue in my hands. I can't just sit and spin for hours. Specifically in like my pointer finger and my thumb, I just get kind of stiff and sore and I need to do some stretching and some resting. So unfortunately I can't just sit and spin for a whole movie, but the 30 minutes is really doable and I do see some good progress there. So every day gets a little bit closer, and I'm excited to get this one plied up, see the finished object, and also be able to move on to some other fiber that I have in my stash. That's all I have for works in progress. I do have just a few acquisitions to share with you. I'm going to try and make it quick. If you remember in last podcast episode, I shared that I spun this really lovely yarn from WIP I. This is where the fiber's from. It's blue and rust and brown and just, oh, so pretty. And I wanted, the whole plan the whole time was to use this as stripes in a sweater and pair it with a store-bought yarn. And I saw on Small Business Saturday, Pearl Soho had a little bit of a sale going on. So I picked up some skeins of their knitting yarn DK, which is a 100% merino wool. And I thought this color, which is ivory gray, paired really nice with my hand spun and just was like a nice neutral complement to this. So I got enough yarn to do my striped sweater sometime in 2026, and that is all ready to go and in my stash. This will be my first time using knitting yarn DK, so I'm excited to see how it goes. And then, like I said, I also got some drop snow to knit the sailor slippers for my husband, and I just picked up 2 colors for him. I have multiple skeins of these colors. I just got these really cute little green skeins for him. This one is more of like a true forest evergreen, and this one is more of a sage green. But I think that they will make really nice striped slippers for him. And then the plan is just to use this dark green for the sole color as well. I think it's dark enough that that will be fine. But yeah, just some cute little green yarns for him. I'm probably going to get this cast on tonight when I block his sweater. And then last but not least, La Mercerie was doing a little bit of a Small Business Saturday sale as well. And I've had my eye on trying some Biche Bouche Les Petites Lambs wool. So I got a couple skeins of this. Just these 2. I have never tried this yarn before, this brand, anything. I don't even think I felt it in person before, but I've read that it's really good for color work, and I'm going to be experimenting a little bit more with color work in the new year and trying out some different yarns for that. I have a video planned. I'm very excited. So I originally got this yarn for that video that I have planned. But oh my goodness, look at these colors. I have burgundy gray, which is this dark one, and then rose gray. And I am so impressed with how this yarn feels. I can definitely tell that it will be good for color work. It feels very grippy, but it also like feels quite soft still, and doesn't seem to irritate my skin too much, which I'm very pleasantly surprised about. But anyway, I didn't really have like a project in mind for this yarn other than for the video I'm planning for sometime in 2026. But I got it in person and I thought, wouldn't these make the most adorable, sweetest pair of songbird mittens you've ever seen in your life? Oh my goodness, just picture it. How cute would that be? So I think based on how many yards are in each of these, I think I have enough to do the mittens plus the little bit that I needed for the video next year. But if I don't have enough for both, I'm just going to pivot my video idea. I'm not going to spoil too much. But I just, oh my gosh, I got so inspired when I saw these colors in person. I knew they would be pretty. Like I picked out the colors, but seeing them in person, they're so, especially this one, is just so much more rich and oh, so pretty. I'm so excited about it. So I think that these will be the pair of songbird mittens that I've had kind of in my knitting queue. I had some other yarns somewhat picked out for them, just little stash yarns that I had. But I think they have been pushed aside for these 2 because they're just so dang cute. And that's all I'm seeing anymore when I look at these yarns. So yeah, hopefully that will be a cast on in the new year when I finish my Christmas knitting. Maybe it'll be a Christmas Day cast on. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm quite excited about these little yarns, and I knew that I would be happy getting yarn mail. I'm always happy getting yarn mail, but like it was a very pleasant surprise to be so excited and pleased with seeing these yarns that are new to me. So yeah, I'm very excited to use them. So that is all I have to share today. If you're still sticking around with me, thank you so much. I know there was a lot happening in today's episode. If you haven't already, if you could take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would really appreciate it. It helps my channel out a lot and helps new people find me, which is always really nice. I hope that you've made a lot of progress on whatever you've been working on and that you just have a really, really lovely, peaceful, cozy, happy, healthy, warm holiday season. I will see you in the next one.